I'll take everything from you. My husband's words sliced through the courtroom like a blade. Calm, confident, cruel. I didn't flinch. The judge hadn't even spoken yet, but Marcus Carter was already celebrating my defeat in his mind. He sat straight in his expensive charcoal suit, the same suit I had bought him for our 10th anniversary, the last year I still believed in us. My name is Naomi Carter, and I am a black woman who once thought loyalty could save a marriage. I was wrong. 10 years earlier, Marcus had nothing but ambition and big promises. I had the steady job, the credit score, and the patience. I worked long hours as a hospital administrator while he chased business dreams that failed one after another. Each time I encouraged him. Each time I covered the losses. When we finally bought our home, my name was on every document. My income paid the mortgage. My savings funded his startup. But success changed him. Late nights turned into secrets. Text messages were hidden. And when I found lipstick stains on his shirt that didn't belong to me, Marcus didn't apologize. He smiled. "You're imagining things," he said. 2 weeks later, he asked for a divorce. Not because he was guilty, but because he was confident. Now, inside the courtroom, he leaned toward his lawyer and whispered something that made them both smile. His eyes finally met mine, and that's when he said it again, louder this time. "I'll take everything from you. The house, the savings, even partial custody of our 8-year-old son, who he barely knew how to comfort at night." People often think silence means weakness. They looked at me, standing alone, no dramatic outburst, no tears, and assumed I had already lost. What they didn't know was this: I had stopped being afraid the moment I stopped being blind. The judge asked us to stand. Marcus's lawyer began painting me as emotional and vindictive, a woman trying to punish a successful man out of spite. They spoke about his sacrifices, his hard work, his future. They never mentioned mine. I listened carefully, my hands steady, my face calm. Marcus leaned toward me once more and whispered, "You should have stayed quiet, Naomi. Now you'll leave with nothing." I looked at him, and for the first time, I smiled, because while he was busy planning my downfall, I had already uncovered the truth. And that truth was about to turn his confidence into a nightmare. If you're enjoying this powerful courtroom story, don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who loves real-life drama, and subscribe to my channel because this fight is just getting started. People assume a woman is weak when she stays quiet. They're wrong. Silence isn't surrender. Sometimes it's strategy. As Marcus's lawyer continued speaking in court, I let my eyes drift, not to the judge, not to the jury, but to Marcus himself. He looked relaxed, almost bored, as if this divorce was just another deal he expected to win. He had no idea how much he had underestimated me. When I first suspected Marcus was cheating, I didn't confront him. I didn't cry or demand explanations. Instead, I watched. I listened. I remembered things I had once ignored. Late-night phone calls taken in the garage, bank notifications silenced on his phone, passwords suddenly changed. One night, Marcus came home drunk and careless. He fell asleep on the couch, his laptop still open, glowing softly in the dark living room. I almost closed it. Almost. But something told me to look. What I found wasn't just proof of an affair, it was proof of betrayal far deeper than I imagined. Hidden folders, financial spreadsheets, wire transfers I had never authorized. Marcus had been moving money, our money, into accounts under his business name alone. Joint savings, emergency funds, even money set aside for our son's education. All redirected, all hidden. My hands shook, but my mind was clear. I didn't wake him. I didn't scream. I took photos, screenshots, copies of emails where Marcus discussed keeping Naomi in the dark and securing everything before she realizes. That night, something inside me changed. The woman who trusted blindly disappeared. In her place stood a woman who would no longer be erased from her own life. The next morning, I called a lawyer. Not just any lawyer, but Renee Wallace, a black woman known for dismantling men who thought power made them untouchable. She didn't interrupt as I spoke. She listened carefully, flipping through the evidence I brought. When she finished, she looked up at me and said, "You're not here for revenge. You're here for justice." And she was right. Renee explained what Marcus didn't know. His so-called business was built using joint marital assets. That meant legally it was ours, not his. And those hidden transfers, they weren't smart. They were criminal. We prepared quietly, strategically. While Marcus bragged to friends about winning everything, I gathered proof. Bank records, time-stamped emails, digital trails he never bothered to erase because he believed I wasn't capable of understanding them. Now, sitting in that courtroom, I felt no fear, because for the first time, Marcus wasn't in control. He thought this divorce would end me. He didn't realize it was about to expose him. And the moment Renee stood up from her seat, I knew his nightmare had officially begun. If this story has you hooked, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to my channel so you don't miss the next, because the truth is about to be revealed in court.
The courtroom felt colder the moment Marcus's lawyer stood up. He adjusted his tie, cleared his throat, and looked straight at the judge with the confidence of a man who believed this case was already won. His voice was smooth, rehearsed, and calculated. He described Marcus as a self-made entrepreneur, a devoted husband, a loving father. I almost laughed. Instead, I sat still, my hands folded in my lap, listening as my life was rewritten by someone who had never lived it. They painted me as emotional, unstable, a woman acting out of jealousy because her marriage had failed. According to them, I contributed very little to Marcus's success, aside from moral support. Moral support. As if encouragement paid mortgages, as if belief funded businesses. I felt eyes on me, curious, judgmental, pitying. That's how courtrooms work. People decide who you are before you ever speak. Marcus didn't even look at me. He stared ahead, jaw tight, pretending this was beneath him. He believed his image would protect him. Then my lawyer, Renee Wallace, stood. She didn't rush. She didn't raise her voice. She simply asked for the financial records. One by one, she placed documents on the screen. Bank statements showing my income covering business expenses, wire transfers from joint accounts, credit lines opened in both our names. The courtroom shifted. Renee explained calmly how marital assets work, how money earned during a marriage belongs to both spouses, how removing those funds without consent wasn't clever, it was illegal. Marcus shifted in his seat. For the first time, I saw uncertainty cross his face. Renee continued, presenting email chains, messages where Marcus discussed protecting his assets and making sure Naomi walks away empty-handed. The judge leaned forward. Marcus's lawyer objected. Overruled. The words echoed like a crack in glass. Marcus finally looked at me then, really looked. His eyes narrowed, his lips pressed into a thin line. He hadn't expected this. He hadn't expected me. But Renee wasn't done. She pointed out discrepancies. Money moved into accounts that weren't disclosed, expenses labeled as business costs that paid for luxury hotels and gifts. The implication hung heavy in the air. The judge turned to Marcus. "Can you explain these transfers?" Marcus opened his mouth, closed it, then spoke too fast. He claimed it was all temporary, that he intended to reimburse the accounts, that I had given verbal permission. I felt my heart race. Verbal permission? Renee asked one question. "Do you have proof of that consent?" Silence. Marcus swallowed hard. The courtroom waited, and in that silence his confidence began to crumble. But then, just when it seemed he was cornered, his lawyer stood again. "We'd like to call our next witness." Marcus straightened. A slow smile returned to his face, because he believed this witness would save him. He had no idea she was about to destroy everything instead. If this courtroom drama has you on the edge of your seat, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel so you don't miss the next, because the next witness changes everything. When Marcus's lawyer announced the next witness, a quiet murmur moved through the courtroom. I already knew who it would be. The door opened and a woman walked in wearing a fitted beige dress and heels too high for a courtroom. She held her chin up, confidence written all over her face. Marcus straightened in his chair, his earlier nerves fading as relief settled in. This was the woman he thought would save him, his mistress. She took the stand without looking at me, swearing the oath with a steady voice. If she felt guilty, she hid it well. Marcus's lawyer began with gentle questions: where she worked, how long she had known Marcus, how she viewed his character. She smiled when she spoke about him. She described Marcus as honest, driven, a man trapped in a loveless marriage. I watched the judge's pen pause mid-sentence. Then came the questions about money. She claimed Marcus paid for everything himself: the trips, the jewelry, the expensive dinners. According to her, he never relied on me for anything. Marcus nodded subtly, confident again. That's when Renee stood. She approached the witness stand slowly, her voice calm but sharp. "Do you know where Mr. Carter's business funding came from?" The woman hesitated, just for a second. "His company," she replied. "He told me he earned it." Renee nodded, then placed a document on the screen, a bank statement, highlighted in yellow. "This account," Renee said, "was a joint marital account belonging to both Mr. and Mrs. Carter. Are you aware that the luxury vacation you took last summer was paid from this account?" The color drained from the witness's face. She glanced at Marcus. He didn't look back. Renee continued. "Did Mr. Carter ever tell you that the house he promised you belonged solely to him?" The courtroom went silent. The witness swallowed. He said his wife had already signed everything over," she whispered. My heart pounded, because that was a lie. Renee turned to the judge. "My client never signed away her rights, not once." The witness began to fidget. Renee asked one final question, her voice steady. "Did Mr. Carter instruct you to say what to say today?" The witness opened her mouth, then closed it again. Her voice shook. "He told me to say the money was his, and that this divorce would be over soon." Marcus slammed his hand on the table. "That's enough," he snapped. The judge raised his voice immediately, warning him to control himself. The damage was done. Marcus's lawyer objected, but it was too late. The truth had slipped through, raw and undeniable. I watched as Marcus's confidence shattered in real time. The witness stepped down, no longer sure of herself, no longer protected. And as Renee returned to her seat, she leaned toward me and whispered softly, "This is where everything turns." Marcus built his case on loyalty. He forgot one thing: lies don't stay loyal forever. If this story is gripping you, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to my channel so you don't miss the next, because Marcus is about to lose control. The courtroom felt different after she stepped down from the stand. The air was heavier, quieter, as if everyone present sensed the shift. Marcus sat rigid in his chair, jaw clenched so tight I could see the muscle twitching in his cheek. The man who had walked in that morning certain of victory now looked like someone scrambling to hold onto a collapsing illusion. His lawyer leaned in, whispering urgently, but Marcus barely listened. Renee stood again. "Your Honor," she said calmly, "we'd like to submit additional evidence related to the witness's testimony." Marcus's head snapped up. "What evidence?" he muttered, loud enough for me to hear. Renee clicked a button, and the screen behind her lit up. Text messages. Messages Marcus had sent late at night, bragging about outsmarting me, promising his mistress the house, laughing about how I was too loyal to suspect anything. A few people in the gallery gasped. I felt a strange calm wash over me. These words had once cut deeply. Now they felt like proof, nothing more. Marcus's lawyer objected, claiming the messages were taken out of context. Renee didn't flinch. The timestamps, she said, pointing, align directly with the illegal transfers already entered into evidence. The judge nodded slowly. Marcus shifted in his seat, then suddenly stood up. "This is ridiculous," he shouted. "She's twisting everything." The judge slammed the gavel. "Mr. Carter, sit down immediately." Marcus hesitated. For a moment, I saw the man I used to know, the one who believed his voice could override any consequence. But courtrooms don't care about ego. Marcus sat, breathing hard. Renee continued, her voice steady but firm. "These messages show intent to hide assets, intent to deceive the court, intent to leave my client financially devastated." The word intent echoed in my mind. That was the moment I knew. This wasn't just a divorce anymore. It was exposure. Marcus's lawyer requested a brief recess. The judge granted it. As everyone stood, Marcus finally turned toward me. His eyes were wide, not angry, not smug, afraid. "You didn't have to do this," he whispered. I met his gaze. "I didn't," I said softly. "You did." When court resumed, the judge addressed Marcus directly. "Mr. Carter, your behavior today has raised serious concerns." Marcus swallowed. "This court does not look kindly on deception." The judge's words hung in the air like a warning bell. Renee leaned toward me again, her voice barely audible. "He's losing control. That's when people make mistakes." And Marcus was already making one, because he still believed he could talk his way out. He was wrong, very wrong. If this powerful courtroom showdown has you hooked, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel so you don't the next, because the final evidence is about to destroy everything Marcus built. When the judge called the court back to order, Marcus looked different. Not confident, not angry, desperate. He sat forward in his chair, hands clasped together as if holding on to the last pieces of control slipping through his fingers. His lawyer whispered urgently beside him, but Marcus kept shaking his head, convinced there was still a way out. He was wrong. Renee rose slowly, a thin folder in her hand. "Your Honor," she said, "we have one final exhibit to submit." Marcus's head snapped up. "Final?" he whispered. Renee connected her tablet to the courtroom system. The screen behind her lit up, not with documents, not with numbers, but with a phone call interface, an audio recording. Marcus stiffened. Renee addressed the judge. "This recording was legally obtained and contains Mr. Carter discussing his intent to hide assets, manipulate financial records, and mislead this court." Marcus jumped to his feet. "That's illegal," he shouted. "You can't use that." The judge raised a hand. "Sit down, Mr. Carter. We'll decide what's admissible." Marcus sat slowly, his face pale. The recording began. His voice filled the courtroom, laughing, bragging, talking about how easy it was to move money without me noticing, about how I was too trusting, about how the judge would never figure it out. Every word landed like a hammer. I watched Marcus's shoulders collapse inch by inch as the reality settled in. This wasn't something he could explain away. This wasn't misinterpretation. It was his voice, his intent, his arrogance on full display. The judge stopped the recording. Silence. A heavy, uncomfortable silence. Then the judge spoke. "Mr. Carter, do you deny the authenticity of this recording?" Marcus opened his mouth. Nothing came out. His lawyer placed a hand on his arm, shaking his head slightly. Renee didn't push. She didn't need to. The truth had already done the work. She added quietly,
This recording confirms everything we've presented: intent, deception, and deliberate harm to my client. The judge removed his glasses, rubbing the bridge of his nose. This court takes such behavior very seriously. Marcus finally looked at me again, but this time there was no threat in his eyes, only regret. I didn't feel triumph. I felt release. For years I had been doubted, dismissed, minimized. Now my silence had been replaced by truth, and truth was loud. The judge announced a short adjournment before issuing a ruling. As everyone stood, Marcus leaned toward me, his voice barely audible. "Please," he said, "we can fix this." I didn't answer. Some things don't get fixed. They get exposed. And when the judge returned, I knew Marcus's nightmare was no longer coming. It had already arrived. If this story has you completely hooked, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to my channel so you don't miss the next, because the verdict is about to change everything.
The courtroom was silent when the judge returned. Not the kind of silence filled with boredom, but the heavy kind, where every breath feels too loud and every heartbeat echoes in your ears. Marcus sat stiffly, staring straight ahead, his hands clenched together like he could still hold on to control through force alone. I sat calmly. For the first time in years, I felt steady. The judge began by summarizing the case, slowly, carefully. He spoke about financial deception, about concealed assets, about intent proven through documentation, testimony, and recorded evidence. With every sentence, Marcus seemed to shrink. "This court finds," the judge said, "that Mr. Carter knowingly and deliberately misused marital funds." Marcus's lawyer lowered his head. The judge continued, his voice firm but measured. He explained that the business Marcus claimed as his own had been built using joint assets and could not legally be separated from the marriage. In simple terms, it wasn't his. It never was. The judge ruled that the house would remain in my possession. The joint savings would be restored. Full financial transparency would be enforced, including forensic accounting to uncover any remaining hidden funds. Marcus's face drained of color. Then came custody. The judge looked directly at Marcus. "Parental responsibility requires presence, consistency, and honesty," he said. "This court has concerns regarding Mr. Carter's priorities." My heart pounded. Primary custody will be awarded to Mrs. Carter. I felt my breath catch. Not relief, validation. The judge went on, ordering supervised visitation until further evaluation. Marcus stared at the table, his shoulders slumped. The man who once promised to take everything now left grasping at nothing. But the judge wasn't finished. "Due to the evidence presented," he said, "this court is referring the financial irregularities in this case for further investigation." That was it, the final blow. Marcus looked up sharply, panic flooding his face. "This court is adjourned." The gavel struck, and just like that, it was over. As people stood and murmured, I remained seated, letting the moment sink in. Years of doubt, years of silence, years of being told I was too soft, too trusting, too quiet, and yet here I was. Marcus walked past me, slower than before. He stopped briefly, his voice low. "I never thought you'd do this." I met his eyes. I didn't do anything. I told the truth. Outside the courthouse, sunlight spilled across the steps. I took a deep breath, feeling lighter than I had in a decade. Justice didn't scream. It stood calmly and spoke when it mattered most. But my story wasn't finished yet, because winning in court was only the beginning. If this verdict gave you chills, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel so you don't miss the final chapter where freedom truly begins. The courthouse doors closed behind me with a sound I'll never forget. Not loud, not dramatic, final. I stood at the bottom of the steps for a moment, letting the weight of the past 10 years fall away. The air felt lighter, as if I was breathing for the first time in a long while. I wasn't celebrating. I wasn't angry. I was free. Marcus didn't follow me out right away. When he finally did, he looked smaller somehow, like the power he once carried had been stripped away the moment the truth came out. He didn't say my name. He didn't apologize. Some people never do. The investigation moved quickly after that. Financial records were audited, accounts were frozen, the business Marcus bragged about, it collapsed under the weight of its own lies. I didn't watch from a distance with satisfaction. I focused on rebuilding. The house felt different without tension lingering in the walls. My son laughed more, slept better, and every night when I tucked him in, I reminded myself why I had stayed strong, why I had chosen patience over chaos. Healing isn't loud. It happens quietly in moments no one applauds. I returned to work with my head high. Colleagues who once pitied me now looked at me with respect, not because I had won, but because I had stood firm when it mattered. Months later, I received a message from Marcus. 3 words. I was wrong. I didn't reply. Some chapters don't need responses. They need endings. What I learned through all of this is something every woman deserves to know. Being calm doesn't mean you're weak. Being quiet doesn't mean you're powerless. And being loyal doesn't mean you should be invisible. I didn't take revenge. I took my life back. Today, I stand on my own, stronger, wiser, and unafraid, not because I defeated a man in court, but because I finally chose myself. Marcus once said he'd take everything from me. Instead, he gave me something far greater, my freedom. If this powerful story moved you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel for more inspiring, justice-filled stories. Your support helps these stories reach the people who need them most.